What's going on, you guys? This is Vafa here again, aka Redis Shredder. This is my second guitar lesson video. This is going to be about guitar setup and maintenance. It was going to be about guitars in general, but there's not enough time. We have a lot to talk about, so it's going to be in the next video. This one's just going to be about setup and maintenance. So anyway, if you haven't already, please go check out my first video, which was just kind of like an introduction to my guitar lessons, if you haven't already. And also, please be sure to check out the disclaimer section on my profile page. I think that's important because a lot of stuff I'm going to say is my opinion, and you know, I might be wrong too. I'm not a professional musician or anything. This is kind of like the first in a series of lessons all about just sound and how to make your guitar sound better. So, you know, keep in mind that my camera actually changes the way my guitar sounds, so keep that in mind for future lessons and also for my other just guitar cover videos. But anyway, one last thing before we get started. You may have noticed that I had a little graphic icon thing at the beginning of the lesson. That was done by my buddy Tim Merrick. Thanks, man. First thing you want to keep in mind as we're going throughout this is remember what I said in my last video about how metal, you know, should be in your heart. And so if it is, you know, then you're on the right path. One thing is, you know, metal is going to be all about extremes and just going all the way. You know, it's not about subtlety. So keep that in mind when you're trying to make your guitar sound good. So now I'm just going to give you some general tips and just some general ideas of how to improve your guitar's tone. So first thing to keep in mind is your fingers and your style of playing is really going to affect your guitar tone. So what I mean by that is, you know, if you give the same guitar to a variety of different guitar players, each player will make that guitar sound slightly different. And we'll go into that a little bit later in the next couple videos when I show you some techniques and stuff. The next thing is, this is really important, I think. The guitar is always less important than the player. So, you know, I know a lot of times people focus on like, oh, if I could only have this new fancy guitar, or if I could have that guitar, I'd be so much better. The truth is, it's not going to happen. Getting a new guitar may make you sound better, may give you a better tone, but it's not going to actually make you a better player. And, you know, it sounds obvious, but I think a lot of times, you know, we forget. So just keep that in mind. And, you know, to go along with that, you can give a crappy guitar to a guy like Yngwie Malmsteen, and he's going to make it sound awesome, you know? So, and then on the other hand, if you give that great guitar to a guy who's a rookie, you know, he's going to be able to play it a little bit, but it's not going to sound that great either, so. Anyway, the next thing is, when you're buying a guitar, looking for a guitar, make sure you get a guitar that works well for you, that you can play easily, and a guitar that you like, and the emphasis here is on you. The reason I'm saying that is because I know a lot of times we look at a guy who's really good and say like, oh, that guy's really good, I need to get his guitar. Well, that's not the way you should think about it, because that guy may have gotten a guitar customized for his own purposes and stuff like that. You know, and the analogy I always use is, you know, you wouldn't buy a suit that's tailored for someone else, right? You'd get your own suit. Same thing with guitar. Anyway, the next thing is, I think comfort and ease of playing should be your #1 thing you're looking for when you buy a guitar. And so, you know, I'm not talking about flashiness, I'm not talking about what kind of cool paint it has or what kind of features it has. I'm saying look at how comfortable it is and how easy it is to play. When I say comfort, I'm not just talking about like how small is the body or how easily does it sit on your lap. I'm talking about like how does it feel in your hands, you know, how easy is it to pick, how easy is it to make chords and stuff like that. And there's a lot of parts of the guitar that'll affect the way it feels in your hand, and we'll talk about that in the next video. And just to go with that, you know, I've noticed when I play other guitars, besides, you know, other than this SG, my playing level kind of goes down a little bit because it's not as easy for me to play as this one. And that's why I play the SG, because it's really easy for me to play guitar. Alright, you guys, the next thing is just about general maintenance and setup. So the first thing you want to keep in mind is that your guitar is, you know, it's like a machine, you know, you want to keep it well maintained, just like a car, you know. When you have a car, you're going to get oil changes and keep it full of gas and change the tires and all that stuff. You want to do the same thing with guitar, you know, keep it polished, keep it clean. You should change the strings, you know, semi-regularly at least. Strings will actually give you a better tone. New strings will give you a better tone, that is. Anyway, The other thing you definitely want to keep clean is the fretboard. Since you're touching it the most all the time, you get a lot of buildup there. I don't know if this is the best way of cleaning a guitar fretboard, so don't blame me if something goes wrong, but I actually use the edge of my pick to just kind of scrape the gunk off a little bit, and then maybe just use some polish or something to melt it down a little bit and just polish it. Anyway, the next thing is about just intonation and setup. There's three kind of general things to do with your guitar. So wood can contract and expand. So what most guitars have is what's called a truss rod. It's just a metal rod that's inside the neck of the guitar. And that's just to kind of hold the neck in place. And so if the wood starts to warp, if your neck starts to warp, you can adjust that truss rod to straighten it out. And that will also affect your action, which is the height of your strings, and it'll also affect your intonation, which is how well your guitar stays in tune throughout all of the notes of the frets and all throughout the neck. And they're all related. And what you want to do is always keep your guitar well in tune and perfectly intonated. And keep in mind, if you change any of that stuff, you may need to adjust another part of it. Like, for example, if you change your intonation, you might need to change your action, let's say. But anyway, if you don't know how to change action, if you don't know how to change your intonation or adjust your truss rod, and you think your guitar needs it, when you're playing, if you hear your guitar in tune over here, but then out of tune over here, you're gonna need to go take it to a guitar shop and have someone do it for you. Just, you gotta trust me. It's well worth the money. It's probably the best thing you can do for your guitar. It's just general maintenance. Anyway, the next thing is about action. You want it to be low enough so that it's comfortable to play, so that the strings are easy to play. But you don't want it to be so low that you start hearing buzzing. If it's too low, then the strings themselves start hitting the actual frets, and you get this really nasty sound. So you got to find that balance there. And of course, when you change the size of your strings and stuff like that, that will affect your action too. And then the next thing is the intonation. Of course, you should have your guitar set up so that when you play, like I said, you play up here, it sounds in tune, and when you play the same chord over here, it sounds in tune too. And if you can't tell, if your ear isn't trained to tell, that's why you have to learn to develop your ear. So you'll know if you're playing in tune. Anyway, the last thing I have for you is just two really general tips that not a lot of people seem to talk about. Excuse me. The first one is about tuning your guitar. What you always want to do is tune up to your notes. And so what I mean by that is, let's say you've got a string, right, and it's out of tune, and you want to tune it to a certain note. Go down a little bit lower and then tune up to that note. Don't ever tune up too high and then tune down. And the reason you should do that is because if you tune up too high and then tune down to your note, you may have some tension remaining in your string, and so when you play, it might just slip a little bit, and you'll have a little slack, and you'll go out of tune again. So if you tune down and then tune up to the note you want to go to, you won't have that slack, you won't have that extra tension in your machine heads over here. So yeah, always just tune up to the notes you want to go. Even if you're tuning your guitar and you've gone too high, go farther below and then tune up. And then the last tip I have for you, this is a really good tip that no one seems to talk about, but it's the first thing I do when I get my guitars, and I think it's one of the best things you can do to make a guitar sound better. What you want to do is raise your pickups. So I got my guitar set up so that the pickups are really high and close to the strings, and so that makes your guitar louder. It makes it sound better. You have more tone, more sustain. So give that a shot. Of course, it's just like action though. You don't want to go too high because then the strings will hit the pickups and it'll sound bad. So give that a shot. That's probably one of the best tips I have for you. Give that. Alright, you guys. Well, thanks for watching. That's all I have for you for this video. Like I said, the next video is going to be all about guitars and the individual pieces of guitar and what each part, how each part is going to affect your tone. Alright, guys.